Nathan.
Yeah?
Do you feel the burn?
The burn ham! Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, Kyle.
Hello, Nathan. Hello, ladies, gentlemen, other people.
How are we? It's been a while since we recorded, and we've never ever spoken since.
Well, we've texted. It has been a while.
I haven't said one syllable to you.
It's true. We've been out of contact. There hasn't been super much to talk about until recently, is the thing.
There has been a gap of pop culture things to discuss, or at least things that we thought were worthy of talking about in an episode. You'd get lots of small things here or there, but nothing that was quite, we can make this last 2 hours.
But now we've got a Star Trek trailer, which means we can just talk forever.
And ever. But
also some other stuff.
We have some other stuff. This won't just be a Discovery Season 3 episode. So, let's start with games, Kyle, shall we?
Sure.
The next generation of games.
It's the next generation theme. You see what I did there?
Wait,
it's what we call a joke.
It's what we call an internal loop of Star Trek. So, the next generation of gaming is now coming up on us. Since 2013's Xbox One and PlayStation 4.
God, it was that long ago.
Ride. Yeah.
It still feels new to me.
Same. It's same. This is still next gen.
Yeah.
Current gen is still the 360. But yeah, so we're moving. Come this November, Xbox were very quiet for a long time. We had this Xbox Series X, and then we had a rumoured clocked down version of it at a cheaper price that was Project Lockhart, but we never had a name.
Oh, I never heard the Project Lockhart thing.
I like the project. The project names are better than their actual retail names.
What was the name for the X? It was Project Crimson or something like that.
It was Mystic or Scarlet. Project
that's
Scarlet.
It.
That was it. And it's great. And then we had, Project Scorpio for the Xbox One X, which I think if you want it, I'll let that go. That can just be a project name, and the Xbox One X fits in with the Xbox One series of titles.
But if you just called it the Xbox Scarlet and you lean in and you make all the branding red, you could work with that. But
they probably spent a lot of money if people found out that green is still too heavily associated.
I suppose.
But regardless, they've came out and then they announced, hey, this thing that wasn't confirmed but is basically confirmed is a real thing, and it's the Xbox Series S. Kyle, the Xbox Series S.
The Xbox Series.
And that's going to be the one all the snakes buy.
We've got the Xbox Series and the Xbox Ox.
The Xbox Xerxes. And
why are they so terrible at names? Xbox. Yeah, honestly, it's ridiculous.
So I have done my thunking on the topic, Kyle. I have started in the last maybe year or so, last 8 months at least, I've started to shift my view of the console market to be, especially with what Xbox are doing, to see it as more of a smartphone market.
Okay. You want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, no, I'm more than happy to. And it's mainly an Xbox thing. The PlayStation one is sort of works, but the Xbox is more fleshed out. So you'll get the next generation of phones, and you'll compare it to iPhones because they're clean cut. You'll get your iPhone 7s and your 8s and your, we skipped 9, 10s and 11s and soon 12s,
Mm-hmm.
But within the 10s and the 8s and the 11s, you've got different versions. You've got the Maxes, the Pros, the XLs, their sizes and their slightly different ability for 4K videos or whatnot. And now Xbox is definitely doing the same thing, where despite them both being different specs, they're still within a ballpark in that same generation of phone,
Mm-hmm.
And this is exactly what Xbox are doing. We have the Xbox One S. God, Xbox, change your names! It does kind of work for Xbox One as well, but that felt like it was more of a holdover from the 360 era, where they just done iterative improvements. But these are launching at the same time, and it's the Xbox Series S and the Xbox Series X. And your X is your Pro. It's your big model. It's the one that people will want for the gamey people. You know, people who really, really want their top-tier console gaming experience who also do not want a PC.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got the Xbox Series S, very much still part of that generation, part of the next tier of smartphone release, still a flagship with all the top specs, but it's a bit more for your person that wants to be included in the next gen, but doesn't necessarily want to spend all the excess money for, they don't even own a 4K telly, so what's the point in buying a console that runs 4K natively? It's pointless, you know? And we buy our stuff digitally, so I don't want to spend the extra 50 of whatever currency you choose for a disk drive that I'm never going to use. So, you know, I'll buy this one that's at a much lower price. And I'll say this right now, Kyle, I was impressed and incredibly stunned at the price mark they released the Series S at, because I knew it was going to be cheaper, but I never knew it was going to be that cheaper.
Significantly cheaper, yeah. Which immediately makes me suspicious, though. Like, why is it so cheap? What's the drawback here?
Well, a lot of businesses will be willing to take a cut, and remember, Xbox know that there's still a certain element where they've got to compete with units who are going to be buying PlayStations.
Oh yeah.
So they for all we know, they might actually be selling Xbox Series S's at a loss for the first 2 years, and they'll be subsidising it with profits they make from the Series X.
Well, I guess they also take a cut from all the games that they sell on the platform, so...
It's also very true. And if they think
Game
people
Pass.
will buy this... Yeah, and people will be buying this Series S at such a low price point, because it's almost a bargain too. If I was a PlayStation guy, like, the Series S is seriously worth considering, and I've spoken to some friends that are PlayStation people, and they're not at all turned away at the fact that maybe one day they might end up buying a Series S to play the Xbox exclusives. They'll never shell out £500 for, you know, a Series X where they're not really going to be using it all that often. But $249 for a smashing next-gen console at that price point, I mean, I couldn't even say no to that if I wasn't already going to be buying the Series X.
So you are going with the X then?
I am going with the X. I have a 4K TV, and I need that disk drive, to be very frank with you, Kyle. I am a dinosaur of the physical media age, where despite everyone's adopting digital, as am I. I'm subscribed to Disney Plus and Netflix and Prime Video. You know, I'm not completely a dinosaur who will refuse progression, but I grew up collecting physical media when it was very much the norm. And people who didn't, they're perfectly fine. They're set to enter the digital world without having holdovers. But I collected so much physical media that I still have and still consume to an extent as well. I don't really want to get rid of them either. I need that disk drive, you know? And I don't really want to have a second media device like a Blu-ray player or some such sitting on my shelf as well. I want an all-in-one. I want an Xbox One, that's what I want.
You're like the next generation of those people who love records.
Oh, yeah. Completely. You're not even wrong. And I will not argue with anyone that thinks that digital is the way forward and is much more convenient form of consuming things. That's completely correct. I will rarely, unless I'm just buying for a collection, I will rarely buy your bog standard movies anymore. In terms of, I won't buy your standard editions. I'll buy your steel bookcase at double the price because I have it for my bookshelf.
So you're not coming at it from the place that a lot of people do, where, well, digital media is not really yours. You're just renting it, and it can be taken away at any time, and all this stuff.
Well, that is completely correct, though. You can subscribe to Netflix, and they can take anything away anytime they like. You don't own it.
Well, sure. I'm talking about, like, if I buy, I'm looking at Fallout 4 right now. If I buy Fallout 4 digitally, then if Xbox shuts down, I don't own Fallout 4 anymore.
No, you'll still own it.
But you won't be able to play it, though, because the servers are offline.
Yeah, and it's stored in the cloud, and Xbox servers are shut down, and you can't reinstall it anymore. Well, yeah, I guess you don't really own it, which is quite sad to think about.
Well, see, my view on that is if Xbox shuts down, I feel like we've got bigger problems.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong, but a business can just be seen as it's not profitable anymore. Imagine Sony became... They're making hand over fist in their movie department. They're selling electrical appliances and whatnot. And I know that at the moment, I think PlayStation's probably the most successful part of Sony.
Yeah, they have made quite a few flops in the movie department.
Yeah, but I happen to think that if it happened to one day the tables were to flip, they would probably, before deactivating it, they would think about selling it elsewhere. But if they just couldn't, no one wanted it, which is hard to believe. But if it did happen, it's not like we've got bigger problems on our hands, it's just the market's shifted. But I still want to play my games that I all bought digitally. But now I better download them onto a hard drive before this date, and if I don't, well, screw the fact that I own them. The cloud's not there for me to reinstall them. So it doesn't feel permanent. That is one thing I would say about owning things digitally. Subscribing to a service that has a turnover of movies all the time, like Netflix and Prime Video, fine. I'm just subscribing to your service. I don't actually own anything. But if I do digitally buy something, I do question if you're playing loose with the phrase buy, because in 20 years, it just might not exist anymore.
I don't know what that thump was, but it was very noticeable.
I accidentally kicked something.
Well, okay. Well, at least we've discussed it now. We've mentioned it.
Yeah,
right.
People in the comments don't know, what was that thump at Timecode, blah, blah, blah.
Here's the thing, specifically with games on the permanence idea, is even me, and I play games a lot, I quite rarely replay games unless I really, really like them. So, in that sense, it doesn't super get on my nerves to think about that stuff. Like, if I can't play, I can't think of an example right now, but...
Do you play Tomb Raider? Right,
Tomb Raider. You know, I played it, I enjoyed it, but I have never really felt a big urge to go back and play it again. It's not like movies, where movies, it's a much shorter time commitment, so you're more likely to rewatch it. You know, going to replay a game, that's a commitment of at least like 10 or 15 hours minimum.
Yes, and not even necessarily consecutive. It might take you a few days.
Exactly. So, I don't know. It's one of the things that makes games, to me, a more interesting platform for storytelling and stuff. But
so, I think Xbox, and I'm not entirely versed in PlayStation, but I think they are aware of it too. These people aren't dumb. They know this argument about playing fast and loose with the term buy, and I think they kind of want you to stop buying things as well. They're moving, especially Xbox, they're moving to the Netflix subscription model.
Yes.
You don't own any game you have on Game Pass. You don't own any of that. So the day they decide to discontinue Game Pass, we didn't own any of that anyway, so you're not really entitled to it. We discontinue our service that we're providing to you. Oh well, you know, you don't own anything on Game Pass, so you can't complain the day we take that game off Game Pass. But if you do digitally own that game and the day comes that the servers don't exist anymore, well, I own it and I would quite like to still be able to play it. And the subscription model, as over a factor of time, will make them more money as well.
I think Game Pass is around to stay for the long term at this point.
Oh, it definitely is. Game Pass is not just here as a side piece. They want Game Pass to be their primary way that they export games to consumers. They want you to stop paying for Xbox Live Gold.
That was a little detail. I don't know
if
you saw the news on that they're adding the EA play into Game Pass, which is a big get.
They are. That is a big get. They're rolling it in. I mean, did you hear? I'm acknowledging what you're saying, but this is tying into it. They were trying to get Xbox Play Anywhere to go into mobile phones, and they were successful to get it to go into Android, but they weren't successful on iOS because Apple weren't happy with people not subscribing to their games as a service model for mobile gaming.
That doesn't surprise me.
Is that Apple and Microsoft in the gaming market? Apple are making big plays for mobile anyway, you know, but Xbox wanted you to be able to play your Xbox games on your phone via, xCloud. And they were like, no, you're not allowed. We're not having you do that on Game Pass because...
Oh, that's right. They're still pushing this streaming games idea right now, aren't they?
Yeah, and using your console as a server. And I just watched a video from Unbox Therapy on YouTube last night. And it's on Android. It's now a thing. You can, on your Android phone, you can now stream games from your Xbox directly to your phone. I know you can already do it on computers, but now on your phones, with your Xbox controller, Bluetooth connected to your phone, and it'll just work. And he was playing Forza.
I tried it on my PC once a few years ago when I was sick and I wanted to play from bed, and it was terrible. Like, it was super laggy and bad, but that was a few years ago, so they might have fixed it.
I think in 2018 I tried it on Destiny 2 on my laptop. The resolution was turned down significantly, but I didn't find the latency was that bad at all. I actually had a reasonably positive experience with it. But
I was playing on an old laptop.
I'm sitting in the exact same room that the Xbox was streaming from, so it wasn't like I was.
So was I.
I wasn't trailing around the house with it.
But as we've discussed, my internet's pretty bad, so.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is kind of, to me, it's quite gimmicky. Like, I'm never going to be at a friend's house and happen to not have an Xbox, but I do have my Xbox controller with me, and I want to stream games to my phone for some nebulous reason. It's nice as a feature, but it's not.
Well, my thought was the way they were pivoting to this was you wouldn't even download games on your console. You would just stream them like you stream TV.
Well, that's what Google Stadia kind of is.
Right.
And I think people think that's a pipe dream, but I believe the internet is exponentially just going to get better in terms of its capacity to transmit data to people. And sure, I mean, why not? I don't want to spend the first couple of hours downloading a game before I can play it. Remember in the 360 days where you just put the disc in and it played? I know you literally weren't streaming, it was all reading from the disc, but...
Oh, those halcyon days. Do you remember games with multiple discs? That used to be a thing. Mass Effect. You had to switch discs every time you go into a side mission.
It was worse for Xbox though, because they were using DVDs and PlayStation were using Blu-rays, so they had higher capacity. I remember movies. I still own the DVD version of Avatar, and that's over 3 discs.
Is it really? How did we survive?
It's who knows? Who knows? It's and I'm the one defending physical media here. It's not perfect. But, and I should say that earlier you asked me if I was getting the Series X. I am, but I'm not buying it for the gaming. I'm buying it for my movies.
Well, I think we discussed this when they first announced. Well, I don't know if we discussed this in the podcast, but I'm not planning to get it at launch regardless. I think I'm leaning more towards the S right now. You didn't ask me, but that's where I'm leading. But there's no games coming out at launch that I want. And that's the only reason to buy a next-gen console is for the games, at least for me.
I wouldn't say you're wrong, and I think most people I know are leaning towards the S. I have one friend who he owns an Xbox One S, and he wants to just get a discounted Xbox One X at the launch of next gen because the prices are just going to exponentially plummet from now on for those consoles, because he has no reason to buy next gen and he doesn't want an S. He wants to buy a Series X. If he's going to buy next gen, he wants to go all out, but he just doesn't have the money. But he knows he can get a top tier of this gen for bottom dollar price. But I know that me and friend of the show Ryan, we're pretty much decided that we're buying a Series X at launch at the minute. And people would say, really? But I think I just kind of want to get it over and done with. It's a price commitment anyway, and the price isn't going to drop for the first year. So I'm going to bite down, I'm just going to do it. I'll migrate over. The way they're treating crossplay at day one at this point, I mean, it's just the same as buying a new console, and the fact that it's next gen will become handy in future, but immediately there probably won't be much of a difference. Like, what am I doing day one? Probably playing Fortnite. There isn't a big reason to get next gen for the games at the minute, and I fully acknowledge that. I'm just doing investment for the next 6 months where it is relevant, and I don't need to make it after Christmas when stocks are low.
I'm trying to... I had this exact same issue with the Xbox One, thinking back, because...
You did, because you talked me out.
Yeah. That console also had pretty bad launch titles. Like, it had...
Rise, Son of Rome. Dead Rising 3.
Assassin's Creed 4, but that also came out on 360.
Yeah. Dead Rising 3, Call of Duty Ghosts.
Oh yeah, everyone's favourite.
Titanfall.
Titanfall was good, but again, all of these games also came out on 360. There wasn't... Rise Son of Rome is one of the only ones I can think of that was actually an exclusive to the Xbox One.
Yeah, I mean, I think this all ties into the fact that the Xbox One launch was a complete and utter disastrous mess and it was ugly.
Right, but you'd think they'd learn from their mistakes. I understand that there was probably going to be launch titles before Year of Hell happened, but...
Very good. Well, so I think they have learned, but it's just not the leap and bounds that we would expect. Like the crossplay at day one, people forget that actually wasn't a launch feature for next gen. So people.
There wasn't even backwards compatibility. They added that in a year later.
It totally just did. I mean, PlayStation still barely have it. I think they've only started to get it in the last year. But Xbox, they didn't have it at all. It just didn't exist. And when they done it, they started to do it quite heavily. It was like every week there's new games being added to backwards compatibility. But now we have that straight away, and it's going cross-gen. So I think I can play with someone who's on a Xbox One when I'm on a Series X. So it is kind of strange. It's the same way, again, like smartphones. If I'm playing Raid, Shadow Legends, I can play with someone on an iPhone 7, despite the fact I have an X. It's not locked to generations. It's just the capacity of that next gen will be better and provide me with arguably a competitive advantage. I'm not going to lie. Especially, 120 frames a second versus 60, barely 60 if you don't have the capacity to run at 60 on your television or... I don't know, your internet's awful. But it is kind of going to be like that, and I think maybe an argument for pay to win is going to come into it. You spent £500 on a better console, and now you have a competitive advantage in video games. But I wonder how much that will be a serious criticism, because I know eventually, like a game like Fortnite, for instance, it is going to be cross-generation play at first, but then I believe they're upgrading to a new engine for next gen, and they're going to have to shut off cross-gen play in like a year.
You think we've talked about consoles long enough?
Honestly, no.
No.
Because I've, again, as I've said, a few friends that were going to probably reluctantly buy next gen, but they weren't enthused about it at all. And a couple were even who played Xbox as long as we have anyway. They were honestly considering possibly when next gen comes around, they were just going to buy a PlayStation 4. They wanted the PS4 games to play. They wanted their God of Wars and their Spider-Man.
It's not a terrible idea.
Not a terrible idea. But when the Series S came out at such a low price point, and after it was very clear what the differences were, because if the differences were nebulous, they were like, it still feels like I'm being pressured to buy a Series X for fear that the Series S might not perform to the expectations. But after it was clear on paper that the differences were minute and very specific to certain people, like me for my physical collection, I needed the disc drive. They suddenly became very entranced at the prospect of buying next gen. It's just such a low price. Again, I can't emphasize it enough. It's a ridiculously good bargain.
I want to talk about actual games, though, Nathan.
You want to talk about actual games such as...
There's two trailers that came out recently that interest me. So the first one is, I sent it to you, I don't know if you watched it, was the revealed stuff for Fenyx, Immortals Rising, it used to be called Gods and Monsters, and I think that was a much better name.
That was the Assassin's Creed, not Assassin's Creed one, right?
Yes, it's the Assassin's Creed, not Assassin's Creed one. I think watching the gameplay stuff, it's clear to me that this is the game they wanted to make instead of Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Because it's very similar conceptually.
It's like ancient Greek monsters and stuff?
Yeah, except it's without the limitations of reality, basically.
No, you've got like magic powers and stuff? Yes. What did you say the new name was?
Fenyx Immortals Rising. It's not spelled Phoenix though. It's spelled like FNYHX or something like that.
For someone who knows about this game in passing, but mainly through you, I was familiar with the old name, and I wouldn't have known this was the same game.
No, it's a terrible name. I think it's an awful name.
You're right.
It sounds like a JRPG.
You're right. It's not a very good name. I think the other one was a lot more gripping.
I saw some clickbait about how they were being sued by Monster Energy or something like that. I'm not sure how much stock I put in that, but Yeah, don't like the new name. I do like other elements. Like, I like the fact that this is a AAA game with a very distinct art style, because I'm kind of sick of... Well, not sick, but I don't like that photorealistic dominates the AAA market. I think it makes everything look the same.
You want more cel-shaded Borderlands?
Well, not specifically that, but I like having a variety, because games aren't live-action films, and there's no reason that they have to be, is my feeling on it. So even if I'm not super big on the art style specifically, but...
You appreciate the variety it introduces? I
appreciate the variety.
That's perfectly fine, yeah. I wouldn't argue with you there. I don't think I've ever actually... Because when you're telling me the name and describing it to me, all I'm imagining is that game Scalebound that never happened.
Oh man, that was supposed to be an Xbox One launch title, right?
I don't know. I think they cancelled it in 2016. But yeah, no, so I would also agree with you that not every game has to be photorealistic in the AAA front. Like, I mean, even Halo has... It tries to go for semi-photorealistic, but it still has a distinct art style. You can see a Halo game and you know you're in a Halo world. Even when you watch the Halo 2 Anniversary or Halo Wars 2 graphics, it looks great and real, but also not, and I don't quite know how to define it. And it's not Uncanny Valley, everything looks fine, it's just...
I know what you mean, it's real faces and stuff like that, but the armour and the outfits and the weapons, they don't look very real.
Yeah, they all look kind of... not fake, but of a fictional realm.
Yes.
I would agree with you with this new game that you're talking about from Ubisoft. It's Assassin's Creed, not Assassin's Creed with a really bad name. That the variety is probably important to a lot of people, especially like family, kids and stuff. You know, I don't want to play a bad man war game. I want to play a fun, colourful match game. And AAA's usually give a better experience, so why not allow these people to enjoy a AAA game with that art? Because visuals will turn people off.
It's true. It's nice to see just new IPs in general, because they're so rare.
As we've already discussed, Assassin's Creed, not Assassin's Creed. How unique do you really think the game's going to be, though?
I mean, you clearly didn't watch the thing I sent.
I didn't. I didn't.
It's visually, apart from the art style, it's similar to the Fate of Atlantis DLCs, where everything's very exaggerated and
DLC I haven't played
magical.
Yet.
I know, you should play it. It's good.
I will. No, I definitely will. I just kind of, I think after bashing Odyssey for a month straight, it just kind of burned me out. I need to finish that DLC, then I'll go into Origins, and we'll see how we go.
I think maybe the weirdest choice of it is that they went full in on ancient Greece again. I feel like as a marketing decision, it might have been better to go to a different mythology instead. But yeah, because
do you see any hints of them reusing assets?
No, it's all new and different. Although I didn't watch most of the gameplay, but the gameplay does look similar. Without the stealth mechanics, though, it's all just the fighting side of it. Yeah.
Is it still going to be the RB and LB to fight?
I'm not sure.
That'll be interesting. Any other games, Kyle? Any other games?
Why, yes, there is another game. It's called Star Wars.
Lego Star Wars.
Oh, right, that trailer came out. I completely forgot about
that. You were talking about Star Wars Squadrons, weren't you?
I was. I will say the Lego Star Wars one, the worst came to pass, and it was revealed that they do talk, which I did expect to happen. But, you know.
But you're fine with that. That's not a turn-off for you.
I'm fine with that. I've played all the Lego games where they talk.
I will still be buying the game. Doth not worry. I would like to say, though, for Star Wars Squadrons, because I've got a feeling that's going to be the thing we talk about more than the Lego one, because, you know...
Yes, I have thoughts.
So do I. Now, I've got friends that are big Star Wars fans that they own Fallen Order, they own Battlefront 1 and 2. They're just not buying this game, though. Starfighter Assault was never their main thing in Battlefront 2, and furthermore, first person in a cockpit if you're not playing in VR. It just does not seem like a very fulfilling gaming experience. Even I don't know if I'm going to buy it. I think I'm going to buy it. I think I am, Kyle. But I can't make the promise that I'm going to buy it because I feel like the story is going to be more compelling than the gameplay for me. And I love Starfighter Assault, but the first person exclusively locked in feels like a massive mistake to me, and I can't believe that people are just nodding along with it.
That's interesting, because I think we've talked about this before. I play Starfighter Assault in first person, which you find insane.
I find insane. It's a fun gimmick, and I'm happy it's in the game, but I couldn't play competitively like that.
I enjoy it. I also play racing games. I don't play racing games much anymore. I also play racing games in first person. So this is just the thing I do. Here's the thing. I honestly find it more disorienting in a fully 3D environment, like flying around. This also happens in dogfighting games, which there isn't a lot of these days. But I find it more disorienting to play those in third person because I just have no sense of direction, if you know what I mean.
See, me and you, I think, have the exact same issue, but just third person versus first person, because when you're saying that, that's exactly how I feel in first person, because all I'm seeing is like a circle window of a cockpit if I'm in a TIE fighter, and if I pivot down to turn around, I just get completely lost because I can't see my surroundings.
It's interesting to hear you say that there's people who are not interested in it, like Star Wars fans, because I'm actually quite interested in this game, both story-wise and gameplay-wise, and I'm happy that there's a big Star Wars game that isn't going in the obvious direction, if you know what I mean.
What, having an Imperial turn to the good side in the first 5 minutes?
No, not that. I just, gameplay-wise, Jedi Fallen Order is obvious, you're playing as a Jedi, and even in Battlefront, just, like, it's obviously, there's already been Battlefront, I know there's already been Starfighter games as well, but they're usually the old, I've never played the old Starfighter games, but they're more obscure.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean.
So I like seeing a big AAA Star Wars game that's going in a more obscure game direction. And also, it's a game that can't possibly have a Jedi in it, which is nice. I mean, Luke Skywalker might show up at some point, but it's going to be predominantly...
You wait.
It's going to be predominantly about regular people, which is nice. I like when Star Wars focuses on regular people.
I know you can get Darth Vader's customization option inside your cockpit. Like a little statue of him.
Oh, that's true. The customization stuff feels weird because it's the total pivot from Battlefront where all the customization tries to be as realistic as possible.
So,
or not realistic, but consistent.
Customization options in this game, they've gone to extremes to try and make it link in with canon. The people who are making this game are the same people who made the campaign for Battlefront 2. Remember Hask from Battlefront 2?
He's one of the...
He was one of Inferno Squad that stayed evil.
He's the squad that stayed evil, yeah.
So there's like Easter eggs to him in the game, and they talk about all the different colours of X-Wings and all the different colours of TIE fighters and what they symbolise, and if you're handpicked to be the Emperor's Guard, or if you're for hazardous environments, that's the helmet you wear in a TIE fighter. Blah, 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 blah. This is that you can get Fenyx Squad stuff and the reference Sabine and all that and the artwork. That's why it looks like this.
Well, Hera's in the game.
Hera's directly in the game, So, and this is what I'll say. I don't think the customization thing's a problem, and I think the gameplay is going to be a Marmite thing. Not the Starfighter aspect, but the first-person locked aspect. I might hate it. I honestly might hate it. I don't hate it yet, but
here's
I might
my
hate it.
issue on that is... I have like a specific dislike of first-person cutscenes. I find them really awkward because I don't know how to express this properly, but they just make me feel uncomfortable. Not like in gameplay it's fine, but when a cutscene is in first person, it always feels weird to me, where the NPC is looking directly at the screen and just talking to you, and it feels weird to me.
I can see where you're coming from. I've never had a direct problem with it, but I can see where you're coming from. I'm sure in this game, because you can even customise the character you're playing as, so I don't know if it's going to be like a Noble Six situation, but they've all got faces.
I was kind of inferring that it was a silent protagonist, which I'm not super looking forward to.
So, seeing that trailer they showed, the great CG trailer that's like 5 minutes long?
Yes, I want to talk about it.
Well, there's a bit in the trailer where the guy takes off his helmet.
Mm-hmm.
And then I watched a video of the customization options for your characters. But it's kind of like you can choose your customization for your New Republic team and choose your customization for your Imperial team.
Yeah.
And that guy in the trailer, he's just one of the faces that you can choose from.
It's like the cinematic trailers that star generic default John Shepard.
Yeah, you're right. Fair. But I feel that's different because you can create a completely weird custom character, or you can go with him. Whereas this guy is just one of possible 6 combinations of characters you could have chosen. Predetermined. You can't edit their nose line or their ethnicity or anything. It's like we have 6 characters.
It's like Sea of Thieves.
Pick one. Yeah, exactly like Sea of Thieves. So, I don't really know if it's going to be first-person cutscenes or not, or if their characters is going to stand in the background with the rest of your squad.
From what I've seen of gameplay, there was a shot in one of the trailers where Hera's like talking at you.
Talking at you, yeah.
Yeah,
fair,
so I think it is first, because they've talked about having this social hub area on each of the ships where you walk around and talk to NPCs.
Yeah.
I do want to specifically talk about Hera, because it's great. I love seeing her in this game because it's great to see cartoon characters in different...
Anything from the Filoni Empire showing up elsewhere in Star Wars is always welcome.
It's nice to see crossover. I like a good crossover. It's just one of those weird things where it's impossible. You can translate live action to cartoon fairly easily. Going the other way is almost impossible. Yeah. So it's nice to see her, but just looking at it doesn't look like Hera. It looks like a different person.
Sometimes though that can be like a shock to the system that you can get over though. Like when you hear this is relevant to us, when somebody that listens to your podcast for a long time and doesn't know what you look like and they see a picture of you, you're like, oh, that I wouldn't have pictured that face with that voice, Mm-hmm. And it happens all the time.
Sure.
But
yeah.
I think that's probably the same here, where you're like, oh, cartoon, I wonder what this person would look like in a photorealistic environment. Because you kind of know in your head somewhere that if they'd done this photorealistic, this isn't how this person would look.
Mm-hmm.
And then they show up and you're like, oh, this isn't what I expected. I couldn't have imagined that character in this cartoon looking like that in a photorealistic environment,
I mean, I expect to get used to it. It's just, it's one of these things that it's kind of impossible to avoid.
How do you think you're going to feel when Ahsoka shows up in The Mandalorian Season 2?
Oh, I have no idea. It's going to be weird. I think for that one, the voice is going to be weirder for me.
You think they're just going to get Ashley Eckstein to dub over?
I would kind of like that. It would be so weird, but I would kind of enjoy that.
Oh, it's the memes, they'll be rampant. But yeah, no, so I get what you mean. There's a real world I could see me living in where I actually don't buy the game and just watch the story cutscenes.
I'm gonna buy the game. I'm interested enough, but cinematic trailer, right?
Yeah.
Because as I made public on Twitter, my inner SGW came out for a minute there.
Yeah, you went on the Tweety.
So they've made a big deal about this game that it has 2 campaigns, one for the Rebels and one for the Empire, right?
Yes.
And something about that doesn't click right with me.
Go on.
So this trailer, it focuses all in on this one Imperial pilot guy. And the way it's done is to make the Rebels look like the bad guys. You see the Rebel pilot and you can't even see his eyes. He's in shadow and he gives some it's almost framed like a racial comment where he's like, war's over, imp. And you know what I mean? There's like a discriminatory quality to it.
I took it very politically.
I guess it's kind of like calling him like a Trumpist or something.
War's over, MAGA.
Yeah, exactly. and the way the Empire's running away from this aggressive force and all this.
Yes, and the TIE fighter pilot's like, oh, another retreat.
Yes.
I would like to, after we've done this little part of what you're saying, I have thoughts on that.
Anyway, so, can you hear that?
I can.
Shit.
It's not loud, but it will show up on the podcast unless you
hopefully
can
I can
out.
take it out with background noise reduction. If not, subscribe to Scott Rods on YouTube.
The great crossover on the pod, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes. So, the Empire are bad guys, right?
They are not the protagonist of the Star Wars universe.
Very explicitly, the Empire in the original films, they're based on the Nazis, and that's not extrapolation or anything. Like, that's been said in background information and all this. The uniforms are based on Nazi uniforms. Their ground troops are called stormtroopers. Like, it's not subtle.
Really? I don't know, it's just a coincidence.
So making them sympathetic and kind of heroic, it feels weird to me. It makes me uncomfortable.
So, what I would say in response is getting two campaigns from different perspectives isn't a new thing. Like the Transformers games, you get an Autobot campaign and a Decepticon campaign, you know, and it's almost like the same story just told from two different perspectives. It's actually quite a good game mechanic in my opinion, because you're literally witnessing the same events just from the perspective of subjectively good people or bad people. And in this game, the trailer, yes, you're correct, in this piece of marketing material, they do try to make the Empire seem like the person you should be trying to sympathise for. But I think that comes down to what's the point if you just hate the person you're playing as? And if you watch things like Breaking Bad or House of Cards, the person that's the protagonist isn't really a good person. But you kind of love to see these individuals kind of progress forward, because actors say it all the time, playing the bad guy is just fun. There's a certain entertainment element here, like just the chaos, the wild card, if you like. And I do find it interesting the Empire in the original trilogy, they were fascists and Nazis, and that was their part of the plot. That was their stand-in. They were stand-ins for, Nazi Germany. But I think over time, when you watch the original trilogy, that is clearly their purpose in the story. But that same fictional institution in this new media, in this new product, this new game, they can shift that, and now they are the bad people. But how do we witness their downfall? And do we see it from their perspective, Like, I've found it weird where the Rebel Alliance was always the underdog in Star Wars. They were outmanned and outgunned and outshipped and out everything. And now suddenly they destroy the second space station, and now suddenly they've got all these ships and all these capital ships and all these starfighters and all these people coming to their aid. And the Empire suddenly is completely inefficient. Now, I put that down to just the leadership crumbling. But Star Destroyers didn't suddenly become weak because the Emperor died. A Star Destroyer is still a significant piece of technology that should have been able to, in that trailer, those two Star Destroyers in that dry dock should have been able to contend with that rebel fleet. If the Emperor was still alive, the story would have been so that the rebels got their arse beat there, such as maybe the Starfighter assault in Rogue One, where they technically won, but everyone died, But in this, it's just, oh no, the rebels or the New Republic, should I say, no, they're fine. They're rolling over the Empire because the Empire's buff has disappeared, I guess. They've run out of mana. They can't cast any more spells that make them all powerful. And I've always found that a little bit implausible, that all of a sudden the Empire just, another retreat, we keep losing because our Emperor died. Not like they still got the same amount of ships they had the day before, except one space station doesn't exist.
I kind of like the argument you just made there, that they have no leadership, and as it turns out, all of the regular, Imperial captains and stuff, they're just kind of cowards who don't know what they're doing. Yeah. I kind of like that as an idea.
It's entirely possible. That's what I put it down to anyway. But there's a person in this story who's the Empire lady that you keep hearing. She's in the trailers, Admiral Sloane.
The Asian lady.
Oh, I thought she was African American.
I'm sure I've seen pictures of an Asian lady in an Imperial uniform.
So this is an awfully racial moment for two white people to not know the ethnicity of a big character in Star Wars as a female.
Look, we haven't played the game yet, okay?
We haven't played the game yet, but this character exists in media elsewhere. She's been in the books. Ray Sloane is a big part of Star Wars. Oh,
right, yeah, I was reading about that. I can't remember why, but I read I went down a wiki rabbit hole because I just made a video about Star Wars. Click link in the description below. But I went down a Wikipedia rabbit hole of this one lady. I was like, holy shit, this lady has a larger Wikipedia entry than some main characters.
Yeah, well, that's just what happens when people feature in books and comics predominantly. It's like a TV show versus a film. Film's maybe the big spectacle, but the TV show has more story to tell.
And the books just have way more stuff in them.
Yeah, exactly. But I do find this is why I like the Battlefront 2 story. I like and the books, the Aftermath trilogy and whatnot, where you see what happens at the downfall of the Empire. All these different admirals and moffs all kind of contending for their piece of the pie.
Yes.
And if they could just get behind one moff.
If only Thrawn was still around.
Because that was kind of the thing in the old story.
Yeah,
he was the one Grand Admiral everyone could get behind, and he was a contender to the New Republic. But in this timeline, he doesn't exist. He disappeared because he was around pre-fall of the Empire.
He got kidnapped by space whales.
He's somewhere with Ezra around a campfire, and it's like the episode where Dukat and Sisko were stuck in a cave.
Nice
That's
reference.
not relevant. Good, yeah. Or
the episode where Geordi is stuck on a planet with a Romulan.
Remember Star Trek? I remember. So anyway, I kind of think that where we are in that area now, where we are just kind of telling stories about this empire that was had an iron fist, and that big fist is now turned into 5 separate fingers that don't really know if it's got a unifying body or not. And I don't mind seeing the bad people kind of crumble, but seeing the people that were part of the institution maybe start to go down fighting, or maybe even start to regret their life choices somewhat. Like, I really don't mind it. It doesn't bother me. And it comes back to playing the bad guy's fun. And if you just hate the person that you're seeing, like, watch Infinity War, Thanos is clearly the bad guy, but you still got to like him to a certain extent to tell the story and not despise him.
Well, there's different levels to this, right? Because I would agree with you. You need to like the people you're playing as, otherwise you've got no motivation to play the game.
I will let the New Republic kill me.
Yeah, but this is a whole thing with The Last of Us Part 2, which, not to get too much into that, but it's a big component of why people don't like that game. There's ways to do it without making them sympathetic. Like, I would agree that you like Thanos, but I would never call him a sympathetic character in a traditional sense. Like, obviously, you understand his motivations, but you don't sympathize with them, if you know what I mean. And this is all based on the cinematic trailer. If it continues that way in the game, I might have to make a video about it. Like, that was my first thought was,
There's a bit in the trailer where he takes off his TIE fighter helmet and it's like all heroic and slow-mo.
Right, exactly. And it just, what you're talking about with the Empire crumbling and all this, I think you could do some really interesting stuff like that, not to insinuate that Star Wars might be political or anything, but...
Wait, what, are you putting politics in my art?
Yes. You could use this time as a way to explore how fascism kind of deteriorates without that central figure. Your
Adolf Hitler, your
Adolf
Palpatine.
Hitler, right? Your big man who kind of brings all these people together, and without it, they're all just these people kind of floundering around, not really knowing what they're doing. And there's interesting stuff you could explore there, but I don't think making them sympathetic and heroic is the best way to do that. So you could make the Empire interesting and fun to play just by kind of leaning into the evilness of them. Like they're like laughing about killing civilians and all this. But you know what I mean?
No, I completely get what you mean, but I think they're going the direction, and I don't even necessarily hate this direction. You get people like in the Battlefront 2 campaign, you get Iden Versio, and she makes a decision to turn to the light side, where she realises that the Empire is seriously flawed and it will be its own undoing, Now, she does it very quickly, but forget about that. But her father, I think he's a Vice Admiral, but he's Admiral Versio. He's an Admiral to the such point where he wears a white tunic, Kyle.
Indeed.
Don't see many of them. But he was, in the lore in the books, he's one of the characters that was supposed to go with Gallius Rax and start the First Order to go out to the, unknown regions of space. And they kind of briefly go over it at the end of the campaign where he's in Jakku and he's watching the Empire just be destroyed right in front of him. He's given his life to the Empire and he doesn't really know a life without the Empire, and he's going to stand there and watch it crumble as a respectful modern Major General. But I kind of like to see stories where these people who've given their all to this institution, how do they reconcile that it's come to an end? Or maybe even these people who, they aren't necessarily fascists, despite the institution itself clearly being fascist. But
well, they're kind of brainwashed.
Yeah, but you're a member of this society and you decide, I want to hold up the common good. I want to help people. So, because we live in this fascist dictatorship society. But I'm also not inclined to be a rebel.
Be played as
I need
tragic,
to join the military. Well, see, I think the Battlefront 2 story is told quite tragically.
I would agree. I also like the Battlefront 2 story.
And I think this game might do that. I think these characters might, because I know there's the bit in the trailer where he's crashed in the land and then you hear his comm go off and that kind of the war's over him, like it echoes in his mind. And he's like, not yet, not for me. And maybe this game will be like a story where that's quite near the start of the game and we just see that character. And I've got a feeling it is going to be like a Noble Six situation where that character, whoever that character is, the player, you could do that. You could release multiple versions of that trailer with different faces. And it's just these people over the course of the game realising that either they're going to go down fighting in this flawed institution or they come to a realisation that they need to join the light side. But I don't think they will join the light side. I'll clarify that right now because Battlefront 2 had done it and people thought it was handled really poorly, and I don't think people want another game where even if it's handled well, the second game they do with the Empire ends with the protagonist turning good. I think people want a character to stick with their guns and maybe go down evil, even if they realise the flaws of the institution.
It's too late for me, son.
There you go, Darth Vader. He is also the TIE Fighter pilot. There's going to be a recut of the trailer where he takes off his TIE Fighter helmet and it's a Darth Vader helmet.
It's the one thing about this game which I find odd is that they chose to set it in the exact same time as Battlefront 2.
Battlefront 2 covers a 30-year period. Your any time set between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens will be set in the exact period of Battlefront 2.
Well, it doesn't. Well, the main, obviously there's the DLC, the free DLC they added that's set during The Force Awakens. Yeah. But the main story is Death Star 2 to Jakku, which isn't that long a period of time, I don't think.
I think it's about
I would call it like a year at max, maybe.
Oh no, I think it's longer than that because when Rey gets left on Jakku at like the age of 8, the battle's already happened. But I think it's like an 8-year period because she's in her like mid-20s, I think, by the time The Force Awakens comes around. There's a 30-year gap there. I would say I'd say you've got 10 years to play with in there.
The game doesn't make that clear though. The game makes it all seem like it happens in a few months.
See, in my interpretation of Battlefront 2, there's these weird time jumps where relationships progress and, hello, Senator Organa, how are you doing? We are now friends after our encounter on Naboo where you forgave me awfully quickly. Like,
yeah, but that's just like movies, though.
And you see like the ship being upgraded and whatnot. Well, again, I think movies play with time in a weird way as well. But to me, I had a clear implication in Battlefront 2 where there's your leaps of time are passing here. Not just to include the bit where they're all old people and it's The Force Awakens. But I've seen potentially years passing. Or when they meet Lando and Lando becomes friends and Shrev joins the crew and they became, we're best friends. Shrev and the guy, I can't remember who became the dad.
Miko. Del Miko.
Yeah, Del Miko. They became great friends, and they retrofitted the entire ship that they used to change its engines out and make it all rebel-y, and the X-Wings for TIE fighters, that could be done quickly. But for me, all these retrofits and stuff, where this took months in dry docks, and I've always interpreted the Battlefront 2 campaign took place over a number of years. Maybe not 20 years, but over a number of years. Better part of a decade to me, that's where I see Battlefront 2 falling.
Okay, I never took that interpretation, but sure. It's still the same time period, though. You know, Star Wars is very, very sort of age-based, like they call it in Battlefront 2. And this is the age of the fall of the Empire, specifically.
Oh, you're definitely right. Like, what they say, it's like Age of Republic, Age of Empire, Age of Rebellion.
Age of Resistance.
Age of Resistance, yeah. Oh, God.
But, I just, it seems like maybe they should have had more distance between their franchises.
Especially if it's 2 games.
Yeah, I find it very funny that they all, or every game so far has completely avoided the sequel era. But, because even the sequel era stuff in Battlefront 2 is very clearly the part that they care the least about. You can just shove that stuff in afterwards. But, I mean, there is reasons for that. It's because the sequel era is very hard to tell other stories in, I think.
I would arguably say it's an untapped well where you could do interesting stuff, but
Possibly.
It's too much of a hotbed at the moment and people are unwilling to touch it.
Maybe give it a few years and we'll start seeing more EU stuff there. What I really want is for them to actually go full in and do another prequel era game. But they're not going to do that.
Arguably with the multiplayer, Battlefront 2 became a prequel era game.
They did go all in on it for a while, yeah.
All anyone plays in that game now, I believe, is prequel era stuff. But yeah, no, I would love a prequel era game, and you know, the Jedi being all the rage. But I mean, I think right now they really are, from a business perspective, because remember, this is a business. They're setting everything after Return of the Jedi, but closer to Return of the Jedi than they're setting it to The Force Awakens, because they want to still be able to play with thing you know. We want to see Stormtroopers, Imperial Stormtroopers. We want to see TIE Fighters, Imperial TIE Fighters. We want to see Empire stuff.
Well, yeah, that's the same with The Mandalorian too.
It's exactly the same with Mandalorian stuff. We want to see stuff about the Empire, but we can't do it before A New Hope because Filoni has basically dealt with everything then. We can't do it close enough to the sequel trilogy because yikes. And also, there's just everything. The visuals have changed a lot by that point. We've got Stormtroopers, they don't look like Imperial Stormtroopers. And people want to see thing you know, so that's the only time we can play in. Like 5 to 10 years post Return of the Jedi is the only safe space we have.
Well, Fallen Order is set pre the movies, in that sort of Rogue One Rebels era.
Alright, it was set 5 years after Revenge of the Sith.
Is it that soon?
Yeah.
But Cal Kestis is like 12 in those flashbacks, and he's a man in current. It has to be longer than 5 years, right?
Because there's the game starts with them at a shelling yard and they're cutting up old Republic cruisers and crashed Jedi fighters that nobody ever saw before, and they're actually actively still bringing in old Separatist ships to be cut up.
They've got that planet that has like a giant monster living in it that they feed pieces of the planet of the ships to. Prequel era stuff is so bizarre, and I love that. I want Star Wars to be more weird.
I don't remember them doing that.
You don't remember that? There's a if you read the logs and stuff, there's if you look down, there's a big monster. The planet has a big monster living in it that they feed pieces of the ships to as disposal.
I thought they were just cutting it up to sell it for scrap, because they always talk about getting big bonuses and stuff. Like, if we found a Jedi Starfighter, we'll get lots of money for this.
There's parts of that too, but the waste material stuff, they just feed it to this big monster.
Wild. That's wild. I never knew that.
That's why I love prequel era stuff.
Oh yeah, the prequel era is the best.
Star Wars original trilogy era is always, it's so plain. It's just, they're just planets. They're just planets where people live. They don't have weird stuff.
Yeah. Force Unleashed done a lot for that. Force Unleashed has got a lot of wild prequel, even though it's set in the Age of Empire, there's a lot of wild prequel stuff that happened in that game. Because they go to like Felucia from the prequels and all that, and you see these big Sarlacc pits and Rancors everywhere. It's great.
Anyway, I guess we should, while we're on Star Wars, we should talk about that Mandalorian trailer that just dropped yesterday, although I honestly don't have much to say about it.
It's a trailer for a TV show.
It's everything I expect it to be.
Everything I expected it to be. Would you like me to tell you the spiralling words from Scoopers right now? Reasonably reliable Scoopers, though.
I'll go on then.
So, Mandalorian, Mando, he either dies or leaves this show at some point mid-season. And it's all to do with Pedro Pascal thinking that his role isn't really fulfilling enough because he's only doing either voiceover work or wearing a helmet all the time. And
he knew that when he took the role, though.
He wants to do more. See when you do background research before you pick up a role and you see what these Mandalorians are about. Mm-hmm. When have you ever seen a Mandalorian in any other Star Wars medium never take their helmet off before? You're going to assume at some point we're going to ditch that stupid rule.
Yeah, but they must have told him when he took the role. Oh, yeah, that was the role.
They definitely told him, probably, but over time you're like, they'll drop that role, and now we're probably doing a full second season, and we haven't done it yet. But so what I've heard now, by the way, people think this sounds incredibly insane, and I think it sounds a bit far-fetched as well, but the source that I'm going from is reliable.
Well, there's contract stuff to consider and all that as well. So
yes, well, it depends on the seasons they sign for. And what we've heard is that they've filmed stuff in such a way that he can kind of be interspersed throughout the season, but because John Favreau has said himself that this season will also tell stories about other characters, all related to the Mandalorian, like people that will come in, like Ahsoka or Bo-Katan and stuff. But it'll kind of be, there'll be some stories where the Mandalorian he isn't in an episode that week,
I've seen, there's just a pivot a second. I've seen a lot of people sort of, where is Ahsoka and Bo-Katan and Boba Fett in this trailer? And I'm happy that they didn't show any of that stuff in the trailer.
So am I. By the way, I think we probably will get a second trailer where they do hint at some stuff, like you get your key at the end of a trailer.
Maybe. I was happy that they didn't tease any of that stuff, though, because it shows a confidence in their work IP. That they don't feel the need to put that stuff in to make sure people watch.
Yes,
so I was happy to see that.
Well, so what people have said is that he'll be sprinkled throughout the season, but isn't in it a lot, and Pedro Pascal really isn't a fan of this, and he might just not even come back for the next season because they haven't started shooting it yet because Year of Hell. And apparently at one point he has been reported to have he tried to negotiate with Jon Favreau about it, and he didn't give any ground, so then Pedro Pascal went to Lucasfilm to try and go over his head. And Lucasfilm already really want to have story inputs on things. So they batted up for him, and then Jon Favreau was still like, no, that weren't no bitch. And apparently everyone was quite upset over the whole thing. Jon Favreau doesn't want him to go, Pedro Pascal doesn't necessarily want to leave, but he's got some lines.
It's a Dax situation.
It's a Dax situation, yeah. And he might still come back if they can work things out before they start the next season. But there's a very big possibility that he might just go. And the show's called The Mandalorian. It's not called Din Djarin, so they could just Bo-Katan it, Sabine Wren it. Well,
the Baby Yoda's Mandalorian now.
He's Mandalorian now, yeah. Maybe he'll be the Mandalorian of the show. They'll give him a little helmet. I wonder if he's long for this show. I know he's such a big money raker. Yoda? Yeah, I think
they're going to hold on to Baby Yoda as long as possible.
Because he's supposed to be going to give them to his race of people, and I hope we don't see more Yodas. I really hope we don't. I hope there's some revelation that he is the only one left.
I wish there was more discourse on Pimp Yoda. Because in the books right now, they're going into the High Republic era, and they released some concept art of Hot Yoda from midlife Yoda.
Listen, I saw those pictures. I saw you saying Pimp Yoda because he's got the gold robe on. So did Snoke, Who cares? Yeah,
Snoke was also a pimp.
Yeah, I'm not here to necessarily subscribe to that meme. I'm not here for it. Maybe people will call me a down in the dumper and a no fun police person. I don't care. I honestly don't care. I was surprised when I saw Snoke was wearing a gold robe. I just didn't expect it because it looks like he's wearing a big grey granny robe in The Force Awakens.
It looks like some really nice pajamas that he's wearing.
Yeah, yeah. He's wearing like a gold tracksuit. He's a gold member, and he's having a smoke and a pancake. But I so don't care about High Republic Yoda's outfit. But Baby Yoda, to keep on track, love him. Great, I'm happy we've got more of him. And God, I hope that Mando doesn't leave at some point in this season and it becomes the Bo-Katan show.
I mean, I like Bo-Katan, but it would be weird. I like Pedro Pascal. I like him in the role. I hope he doesn't leave.
I mean, I kind of am thinking that I like Bo-Katan, but I don't want a show about Bo-Katan. I like the Bad Batch. I don't want a show based around the Bad Batch.
That's so weird, the Bad Batch show. I don't know what they're going to do with it.
I saw a really strange fandom shift when that show was announced. Like a couple of weeks before, everyone was ranting and raving about how the Clone Wars is the greatest thing ever. We love the Clone Wars era. Love the clones.
Well, it's just the Clone Wars ended so perfectly.
Yeah.
And to then continue on from that, it does feel weird.
But what I saw was the entire fan community who loves the Clone Wars all of a sudden go, oh, another clone thing. It wasn't even confusion. It was like everyone that loves it. And it, to me, it shouted so much of Lucasfilm, the creative team, misjudging what people wanted.
Yes.
But now they're committed because I can guarantee they've already probably done all the previs in the first season.
Yeah.
Probably more. It's coming out next year, I think.
It's, the Bad Batch, they're not... I just feel like they're not as interesting as they think they are.
They're totally not that interesting. Maybe the show will do a great job and they'll become our fan favourites and this episode can be looked back on how little we knew. But I don't see it at the minute. That episode that they were in was fun, I guess, and it was nice to see Anakin and Rex and the clones do Clone Wars-y stuff. But that was just it. It was Clone Wars-y stuff and it ended.
They're so I almost want to call them fanfiction-y, the Bad Batch. I don't know if there's a better way to put that.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean though. Even if the wording isn't too as precise as we'd like, I get what you mean. Oh god, that's a kerfuffle right there. You're not wrong.
So the other thing with the Mandalorian is, assuming you're aware of all the controversy with I can't remember her name, the punch
Gina.
lady.
Yeah.
So I was kind of wondering if Disney's looking at all that stuff, so they've got to write her out of the show real quick.
It's like that thing that Jay from Red Letter Media jokes about when James Gunn first saw Infinity War. And he brings out his script and just starts scribbling shit out. He's like, oh shit, for Guardians 3.
I was thinking about that with Hawkeye, because they pivoted a whole show about Hawkeye, and then all the controversy with him came out. It's like,
Jeremy Renner.
Now? Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Hawkeye show was always not going to be as Jeremy Renner focused as people kind of thought, because in the comics there's like multiple Hawkeyes, and I think it's his daughter. Yeah, I can't remember the lady one, Kate Bishop, that one. So, with her comments, that trailer they had was clearly already cut. So made.
She does show up in it alongside Carl Weathers.
Yeah. So, people will say I'm not doing my due diligence in the Star Wars community to stand up on the issue. I'm going to let Disney do what they feel is right, for I have no strong connection to that character. I will not be sad if she leaves, but I also will not really care if she stays, because I don't think she's that big a part of the show.
In this season, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think that character is that integral to the show, to be honest. If she's there, this isn't an issue for me that I'm going to die on. And if she leaves the character, I'm not really going to die on that hill either. I don't even think Carl Weathers is destined for season 3, to be honest. I think honestly there's going to be a big ruckus this season. Whether Mando leaves or not, I think a lot of the supporting characters are going to fly around.
It's interesting what you say about all the Pedro Pascal stuff, because the show is centered on that character and not really any of the other characters. Yeah. At least season 1 is. Season 1 is on adventures. There's the episode where they go into the prison ship, and none of those characters I really expect to see again. It's just a one-off adventure. Well,
because apparently, see, when I said that Lucasfilm already want they want more story input, they already want this show to be You
want it to be Star Wars Game of Thrones, is what you're kind of describing.
Well, yeah, but they want it to be like a episode of the week. They kind of want to go in the Star Trek direction, which I think is weird. And Jon Favreau and I think Dave Filoni definitely, they're going to turn this show into a live action third pillar of the Filoni-verse.
Well, the Filoni-verse is quite episodic.
Yeah, but you see where it goes with the Mandalorian stories, and you get some fillers here or there, but generally you're telling arc stories. Like even you and our friend, he didn't want to. You wouldn't watch it a week at a time. You should wait till an arc is finished. And I've got a feeling that maybe Mando might go in that direction, especially with Bo-Katan and Ahsoka, and maybe even Sabine showing up.
Or they'll have like a couple of episodes with that character and then move on to the next episode.
Yeah, and it will become more of like a juggling thing based around the Mandalorian people and a culture and less of any specific Mandalorian.
Here's the other issue with bringing in all of these Clone Wars and cartoon characters is how are I don't know how to frame this. How are normies going to react to that?
I trust this show's ability to introduce these characters, and the fact that they pre-existed won't be that important.
I hope so, but I'm thinking, like Mike and Rich from Red Letter Media, how the fuck are they going to react to Ahsoka showing up?
I mean, yeah, I do agree that they should be watching the supplementary material.
Sure, but trying to convince people like that to watch the cartoon shows, it's no chance.
Yeah, it's not happening. I trust this show's ability to make their pre-existence not important, or if they happen to reference things that happened before, the show will do some exposition dumps, and we'll be like, oh yeah, I remember that in the cartoon. That's really fun. They reference that, and other people will be like, oh, so that's this character's motivation. Okay, strokes, beard.
In the case of the Darksaber, right? Because they introduced that at the end of season 1. Yeah, you can re-exposition that stuff fairly easily and just say, right, this is a lightsaber that the Mandalorians, it's thousands of years old, whoever owns it rules Mandalore, right? Yeah. That's not super hard to re-explain. You just need probably Bo-Katan will explain that stuff, if I had to guess.
Yeah.
Actually, I saw a theory that Bo-Katan might just be showing up in flashbacks. I'm not sure how much I agree with that, but I did see someone theorize that.
I mean, I think she's going to show up, or she might already be dead, because she had it last we saw, and then there was a thing that Moff Gideon done called Night of a Thousand Tears, and now he's got it, and that's supposed to be the Long Knives.
It would be weird. I mean, they could do it to kill her off in a flashback. She's not like everyone's favourite character ever. She's an interesting character.
Yeah, and like maybe she'll pass it on to like Ahsoka or something.
Well, Moff Gideon has it, so...
No, I don't mean the Darksaber, I mean like the legacy of telling people the story of the Mandalorian. So that even though if Bo-Katan is dead and she's only in flashbacks, like...
The thing is, they've never confirmed this yet, but with Ahsoka in the show, I put like a 99% probability that Sabine also shows up, because it would be weird if she didn't.
Same, and maybe Ezra. And Thrawn, why not?
They could do Sabine... and just not have her take off her helmet, which would be the best way to do it, probably.
Her hair's such an important thing, though. I want to see her hair.
Yeah, but it's also her voice. You'd have to cast someone different in the role.
If she never takes off the helmet, you can just have the original actor voice.
Exactly. That's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
And it would mean you could stall the having to explain all this. There's different clans of Mandalorians who don't take off their helmets and all this stuff.
In the trailer, they do reference a war between the Mandalorians and an ancient order of sorcerers called Jedi.
Well, that's just that's voiceover from the last season, is it not?
I don't think
that's,
so. I know it was the armor. It was the armor lady Mandalorian.
I'm pretty sure that's from the scene where she gives him his mark and all this and says Baby Yoda's... Yeah, I think that's all that voiceover was from the last season.
Well, I think that now that the Darksaber's introduced, that backstory is going to become more prominent. Because why is that? Again, you said like the Darksaber, the first ever Mandalorian Jedi. He died. They kept him in the tomb. The Mandalorians went to war with the Jedi and stole it from the temple. There's a lot there.
It's also, all of that stuff is very... It's not even tied to the prequels. All that stuff is stuff that they brought in from Legacy, right?
Some of it. A lot of the Filoni stuff in the Clone Wars is all original stuff that Filoni and George Lucas worked on before even Disney came into the picture.
I mean, the idea of the Mandalorians fighting the Jedi in an ancient war, that's Legacy stuff from books and stuff, I think, right?
You've put me on the spot and I suddenly cannot tell you. This is very unsatisfying for listeners, I'm aware.
I think this is all stuff that was originally explored like as an origin story to Boba Fett's armor in some book from 30 years ago. Because I think that's where all that stuff comes from.
Because in Rebels, they do discuss it with like a handy like artwork flashback.
Yes.
And then obviously the Clone Wars talks about it ad nauseum as well.
Are are they ever going to mention Maul and how Maul was the leader of Mandalore at one point?
I think they will.
I think they'll at least name drop him.
I want to see Maul. I want to see live action.
I mean, unfortunately, he is dead by this point.
I don't care. I don't care, Kyle.
I do care, because his death was pitch perfect.
I want a flashback, kind of like with Bo-Katan. The flashback of Bo-Katan and Maul fighting. That's what I want. I want the flashback to just be an episode of the Clone Wars. It's all cartooned and everything. They don't even refilm it for live action.
Oh, that would be very funny. But,
they're forcing people to watch the cartoon.
I'm interested to see, and also Boba Fett, and also Boba Fett kind of got teased in the first season, right?
Yeah, it might have been him walking up to get Ming Na Wen up.
Well, we might get Agent May back in the show.
Right. Maybe it'll be like good. It'll be like the Justice League versus the Injustice League. Boba Fett's the evil Mando, and Din Djarin's the good Mando. They get their own evil
Boba
baby
Fett
Yoda.
isn't even a Mandalorian. So
I know that he's a fraud. That's the point. Great. And I mean, I still think maybe Captain Rex will show up.
Captain Rex is so cartoony, though. I don't mean this in an insulting way. It's this clone, and he's got the cool armor and all this. He feels very cartoony to me.
See, I don't think he'll have all his armor. You know the art you see of him from when he's apparently in Return of the Jedi, and he's just wearing like Rebel Force stuff, and there's like a blue stripe on his chest, please, just to Rex in blue, and that'll be all he wears. He won't have any clone stuff. Maybe he'll get his 2 pistols. That'll be it.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't expect Rex to show up.
I would love it. I would love it, Kyle. I can't lie to you.
Bring that guy back in, the clone guy. He doesn't do much acting. Well, he's in Aquaman, right? But
he's in the show, Kyle. He's playing Boba Fett.
Oh yeah, he's playing Boba Fett. But he bring him back. Put him in more stuff. That New Zealand guy. Bring him back.
He's a good actor. Yeah, we'll get thingy Bradley D. Baker, whatever his name is, to
D. Bradley Baker. Bradley Walsh. Baker. I can't remember.
Yes, Bradley Walsh. I can't believe, Kyle. This is where you do a musical transition. I can't believe, Kyle, we're an hour and 20 minutes into this recording and we still haven't spoke about Star Trek.
Oh God, okay. We haven't even discussed Lower Decks on the podcast yet, have we?
We haven't.
Because both of us have only watched the first episodes.
I want to watch more.
You, not by choice. Me, by choice. I'll watch it all when it's out. I just can't be bothered. I found nothing of value in the show.
I'm fed up getting it spoiled for me on social media from American Twitter accounts that, like, they're watching.
Did you hear Q showed up, Nathan?
I heard Q showed. I heard this Chief O'Brien reference.
Yep.
These are things that I appreciate the shows that we're going to get into, Kelsey. I think me and you have slightly differing opinions in this show.
Oh, yes.
But I would like to have discovered this for myself, but CBS's failing ability to have gotten a deal done where they have an international broadcaster is a complete farce, and people try and defend it on social media because of the year of hell, and I do not subscribe to it. If somehow the UK can negotiate a free trade deal with Japan over Skype, you can find Netflix or Amazon to put your show on.
It's ironic given what Star Trek is too, that they don't have a universe. It's specifically Star Trek, and it's
I get it.
It's
and
all
people
global,
try and defend it, and I'm like, you're kidding me. This is just nothing but complete ineptity. If a government failed to do this, you'd be fuming at them. This is
Star Trek fans are very irritating, and no offense, Star Trek fans, because we're both Star Trek fans.
I have a Star Trek tattoo. I'm marked.
Yes.
I am a fan, but the community just enrages me sometimes, and not because people like different shows or whatnot, but just the leaps and bounds they'll go to defend something that just amazes me. And yeah, Lower Decks, I can't watch it here. They put episode 1 on the CBS All Access YouTube channel for like 48 hours, and I was lucky enough that I saw it and was able to watch it, and it wasn't even country blocked, which was nice. And again, me and Kel look into it. I think we have different opinions. I thought it was a perfectly pleasant show. I would like to watch more, but I'm denied. And all these American Twitter accounts that are dedicated to Star Trek. They're doing their job, fair play, but they just don't see a problem with the fact that a massive proportion of the audience have no ability to watch it, and all we can do is just unsubscribe from your Twitter for a few months until they sort it. And they don't really seem too remorseful about it either. They're like, oh, we would love you to watch it, but sorry, we're not going to stop doing our jobs. And I'm like, this is just a no. This is like everyone loses, in my opinion. All we're doing is upsetting everyone, including the people that can watch it, I think, because they don't want to piss people off that are overseas fans, but they've also got to do their job. So it's just an endless cycle, and it's all CBS's fault, but everyone's letting CBS off with it. And I'm just,
Here's the thing with discussing it, right? Because it's not fair to just judge a show in one episode. I think that's fair.
It's not.
And also, I don't know. We might do a full episode on it when it comes out. It's going to be a while because you still can't watch it. So
and right as it ends, Discovery Season 3 starts. It's like a year of Star Trek.
And got to talk about that Discovery trailer as well.
We'll get there.
But just in very brief summary of the first episode, I just found it boring. I won't say it was bad, I'll say it was boring.
I mean, I remember you watched it first, and then
yes,
I'd watched it, and then we didn't really speak about spoilers, but I think you said that one joke got you, and I asked if it was the Warp Core one.
Yes.
And that was the only one that I openly out loud laughed at as well.
I wouldn't even say I openly out loud laughed at it. It got a smirk out of me.
See, I don't mean I cried on the floor of laughter, but I think I went, haha, out loud at what some of the other humour, as questionably constructed as it was, I was able to just enjoy it for kind of what it was. But the first one, when they start fighting with a bat'leth out in the corridor, I was almost seething. I found it ridiculous. The captain, him getting called out for recording a captain's log, I thought was unprofessional on her part.
It's so... The delivery of it is so fast, and it just doesn't give any time for a joke to breathe.
This is the high IQ Rick and Morty stuff, Kyle. You don't get it.
I know. And I've already seen arguments like that, and it pisses me off so much. Because after this episode, I got into a little Twitter spat, which is when I stopped following Trekcore, because I realised it wasn't for me. But there was people... I got into an argument because people were saying that the show's humour was more mature than the Orville. And I totally disagree with that.
And you do not even like Seth MacFarlane.
I don't. I want to punch him in the face. I don't like Seth MacFarlane. But I'm sorry.
But having said that, you still think the Orville is a better piece of television than...
Well, I haven't watched the Orville. I'll confess to that.
Right.
But I've seen a couple episodes of it because my parents got into the Orville. And the idea that it's less mature than Lower Decks is laughable to me, because they pointed out, it doesn't have any immature jokes. And I pointed to a direct example. In the first episode, a man gets suckled by a spider. It's not deep, mature humour.
Did anyone have a retort for your comment?
They said, so what?
Oh, right, okay, so it's not actually they have a defence, it's just
no.
I enjoy it and you're calling it out, and I have no retort for why I don't like it, but I enjoy
exactly.
it anyway. Don't make me feel stupid.
Exactly. And it's fine. I'm not trying to shame people for liking that style of humour. I just want people to...
Acknowledge what it is.
Acknowledge what it is, right.
Well, I think me and you probably agree, but have different results from that agreement. Again, we'll seen that first episode. I saw the spider suckling. There was some weird comedy of just the brutal horror of it for me. I found that a little bit funny, where it was just horrific. And again, I found it to be it's exactly what I expected, by the way. This show has not surprised me yet. Maybe as the episodes I haven't seen, maybe it will. But from the episode I've seen, it is exactly how I expected it to be, even before I seen a trailer and just heard who the creative team was. And you know what? It's fine. I don't like Rick and Morty. I watched, I think, the first season. I just couldn't. It wasn't for me. It's wild. And I found this show to just be exactly what it was. Perfectly average animated show. But because of how much I feel like I've been abused as a Star Trek fan over the last few years, I was open to more because it felt like it was a Star Trek property, but it also wasn't shitting on anything because it's exactly what I expected because it's a cartoon. And I like the cameos if they're doing stuff with Q and it's John Delancey. If I know this is something to do with Chief O'Brien, but I don't know if he's actually in the episode or if they just reference him. If it's Colin Meaney in it, and these little things, it might be cheap and it's not high brow stuff, but I'll take it kind of thing. I'm very much open to this show and the little bit of sort of tuppence it can give me. I'll never say that it's the best thing ever, and I won't even defend any of the crude humour. But it's fine for me. I'll take it, and I would like to watch it, but I don't have an international distributor because I can only assume that Netflix and Amazon won't touch it.
I'm not going to use the argument I use for Picard, where it doesn't feel like Star Trek, because it's not that. That's not the issue with it for this one. You know, like Picard, it doesn't understand the philosophy and what Star Trek is and all this, right? This show, it's not that it doesn't understand it. It's like it doesn't care. It doesn't matter for what the show is.
Yeah, it's a cheap comedy, and they're using the Star Trek intellectual property.
It's just
to sell it.
It's a setting for the show. Is pretty much it. And the thing with that is from what I understood from the first episode, anyway, they're trying to limit it to things that could feasibly happen in Star Trek. Which is where I think this... I don't watch Rick and Morty either, by the way, but my understanding of it is Rick and Morty is basically a show without any rules whatsoever, and basically anything can happen.
It's Phineas and Ferb.
It's more because they go to different dimensions and all this crazy stuff happens.
Yeah.
And that's why people like it, is my understanding, is that it's so batshit crazy.
Pretty much.
And because it's constrained to the Star Trek universe, this show... They can't get batshit crazy with it. Everything has to be limited to, because it's what's that? It's that phrase that they use, like brand consistency or something like that.
Continuity or whatever of the brand. Yeah.
It's like a background phrase that they use for these things. It's
sure. Yeah.
When Disney bought Star Wars, they didn't want Darth Vader doing silly dances at Disney World. All this, you know what I mean, right?
Yeah, no, I get exactly what you mean. It's to keep the brand integrity together.
Brand integrity, that's what it's called. Right. So they're not going to get too crazy with this show because they want to keep it in Star Trek and they don't want to sully the brand with this crazy cartoon. Even though they're already sullying the brand, but with other shows.
In their own internal logic, they're not doing it.
Exactly. And I think that's actually a detriment to the show.
So, I think you are right to the end of, like, you know, this isn't a Rick and Morty and it is limited by it's trying to stay in the Star Trek universe, but it's also been crazy. And again, that's what I mean by it's perfectly average. I don't think this is insulting. Like other I sometimes find bits of other Star Trek at the moment, I find it almost insulting. But this show is just kind of what it is, and the fact that it's Star Trek is almost coincidental, just as an IP to sell the show. And by the way, it's working. I'm watching it. I'm not watching Rick and Morty. So they've got a way to make a Rick and Morty show using Star Trek for the Star Trek fans that won't watch Rick and Morty to watch it. And by the way, I kind of think there probably is quite a big crossover of Star Trek fans and Rick and Morty fans. But,
I wouldn't be surprised by that.
But maybe they're just trying to catch out people like me. And if that's their goal, I mean, I guess it's working. I can't fault them. I guess with this show, not with their other shows, but with this show, what they're setting out to do, I think they've been successful. You know, it's fine. It is what it is, and I'll watch it, I guess. It's like with Strange New Worlds, for instance, their next big live action property coming up. They talk about how they're doing a classic Star Trek show with, you know, character events are going to cross
positivity and episode of the week and all this.
Yeah. But like things that happen in the episodes that affect characters, it's not like next week they forget about it, but it's not like it's the same story from the next week. Mm-hmm. And that's fine. And to me that just shows I think they actually do know how to make a new original Star Trek show if they tried. I mean, they haven't made it yet. Maybe they will do this and it's a mess. But if they make this and it's a success, all it'll prove to me is this whole time they've known how to make a classic Star Trek show. They just don't care, and they frankly don't want to. And they're just using the brand to make sure it's a big thing that CBS have, like Disney have Marvel and Star Wars, and Warner Brothers have DC, and everyone's got a franchise that they want. And Paramount, I believe they've even got Transformers, and that's also linked with CBS. But it's all about who's got the brand. Warner Brothers have Harry Potter. You know, you want your big thing, and Star Trek's a big thing, and let's just pump it for every penny it's worth. And it doesn't matter if it's consistent with the brand historically. If we pay lip service to it and we just keep pumping it out and keep it in front of people's eyes, that's the model. And fine, you want us to do a classic Star Trek show? We can do it, we just haven't been doing it. Here's Strange New Worlds, there's proof we can do it. Shut up.
The marketing for Strange New Worlds and how they keep going on about how in times like this we need an optimistic show, and it just shows to me how
it's completely contradictory to the Picard marketing.
Yeah, it's so contradictory to the Picard marketing, where it just shows that they have no commitment to their creative vision on this stuff. They're just going to do whatever they think will sell at the time. Oh, people didn't like Star Trek Picard's pessimism. Fuck it, we'll just do
what's kind of contradictory about that is people say they do like it.
Well, that's true, yeah.
But they want to try and catch everyone. They want everyone. People that aren't liking Picard, we've got another show for you that you can watch. If you're not a member of the Discovery fan family, here's Strange New Worlds. You can still be a Star Trek fan, and here's a show that caters to you. And if you don't like Picard, well, here's this show. And if you don't like Strange New Worlds, you can watch Picard and Discovery. But the thing is, Picard and Discovery have such a big crossover. What's the different market they're trying to catch here?
Yeah, it's with the optimism and stuff. Like, I'm going to keep using the word optimism because they keep using the word optimism.
They do.
In the marketing for Discovery, they also use the term optimism. Even for the marketing of Picard, they use the term optimism. It's nonsense. This is why I'm very, very cautiously optimistic for Strange New Worlds. And the reason I'm still optimistic for it is because I like Anson Mount. I think he's cool.
He's the only Star Trek character in modern Star Trek.
Right, he's the best part of Discovery Season 2. He makes that show tolerable. And I don't like Ethan Peck as Spock. I think he's a terrible Spock. But I like Rebecca Romijn. And hopefully they get some other cast members to fill it out, and it'll be a good cast. But it's just they don't understand. I feel so pretentious every time I say it, but they don't understand Star Trek, and I want to avoid Gene Roddenberry's vision because that just confuses everyone, and it's unhelpful.
Yeah, everybody thinks that means something different, like when you say
right.
It.
Exactly. So I'm going to stop using that phrase.
Yeah.
But just the idea of this hopeful vision of the future where humanity is settled its differences and goes out and explores and solves problems, right? That they think that's what they're doing with Discovery, with Picard. They think that's what they're doing. It's not so much that they're ignoring it, it's that they don't understand it.
See, I wonder if they even know that's what they're doing. I think they know that's not what they're doing.
They claim that's what they're doing.
Which is bad, which is the same as pretending. Yeah, no, I get what you mean. But I wonder if it's just, again, see, I keep talking about the phrase lip service a lot. Sure, you can just pay lip service to it because, again, brand integrity. The integrity is only as valid as the perception that someone has of the said integrity. You can pay. It doesn't matter if the show it doesn't have integrity with the rest of the brand at all. But if you pay lip service to the fact that it does, and you put optimistic things in your trailers, and every once in a while somebody says an optimistic speech or an optimistic phrase, like that's them keeping the integrity, because again, the integrity is only as good as the perception. So just pay some lip service every once in a while, and if that's enough to fool people, then the brand
It's like the end of Discovery Season 1, where they talk about how violence doesn't solve anything and all this. But it doesn't have anything to do with the content of the season. It's just there.
I mean, again, I think Season 1 is technically a better season, but Season 2 is totally more like Star Trek.
And we haven't even talked about the Season 3 trailer yet.
We haven't.
Because, well, let's do that. Let's pivot to the Season 3 trailer for Discovery, because I think we both have thoughts. We did talk about it on text when it first came out, and both of us agree, because I made a reference to it right at the opening of the show, the burn, which is the point where both of us went, yep, this is Discovery.
Yeah. So, well, nothing's changed. It's more of the same. Because I was completely open to the trailer. They've got a new logo that's nice that I like if it means anything. But yeah, it's completely. They were like the Federation that encountered the burn. It's like, oh no.
Well, everything changed after the burn. The galaxy took a left turn.
Yeah,
I think is the phrase they use.
I thought if they were going to keep the political subtext, they would have said it took a hard right and everything was destroyed. They took a hard left, and I was like, you making a thing against communism here?
I did think that as well.
So I was like, you shouldn't think for the sake of your political message, you should have said took a hard right.
And then I had the second thought, which was, does making a left turn even make sense in space?
I mean, it was a metaphor. I don't think it was literal. It wasn't like the galaxy, the Milky Way floating through the universe. Just one day went, whoa, I'm going this way now, and all the planets' gravity's shifted.
I guess we should explain what we mean by that. It's just it's the same. It's pretty much exactly the same thing we sold season 2 on with the Red Angel. It's a big mystery. What is the burn? What caused it? How does Michael Burnham responsible for it?
How do we fix this?
Exactly.
I mean,
it's
yeah,
the same.
It is completely mental to me. Like what Alex Kurtzman said in the Star Trek Day panels as well, hosted by Mika Burton, was that this wasn't a time like when the Federation is at war with the Dominion or the Klingons. The Federation was as high and mighty as it had ever been in history. And then something came along and destroyed it. Probably destroyed the Klingon Empire and whatever the Romulans are doing, and it destroyed absolutely everything. Everything was completely decimated. Society essentially collapsed, and now everyone is just echoey shells. And what caused it? Now, they haven't said it's Michael Burnham, but it's Michael Burnham.
We're making that joke because that's what Star Trek Discovery is. Everything that happens in the show is because of Michael Burnham.
Yeah. Lorca was in love with Burnham.
Oh yeah, that's right.
She's the Red Angel.
I forgot about that in season 1.
Yeah, it's all about her. You know, she was the daughter of the Emperor in the Mirror Universe. Yeah. And she started the war as well with the Klingons because she killed the Kuvma. And then in season 2, it's a big twist. Both her mum is the Red Angel, but also she's the Red Angel herself. She is also the Red Angel, and she brought meaning to Spock, and Spock has found new life
because of it. Reach out to someone and hold on to them.
Yeah, it's insane. And now in this season, there's a thing called the Burn, and her name is Michael Burnham.
Yes.
So she is responsible. They're going to find out that they find an ancient tablet.
It's like in Game of Thrones. Hold the door, Hodor.
Hold the door, Hodor.
It's exactly the same thing.
Shit. When they said they wanted Star Trek to build the new Game of Thrones and people are going to die and there's going to be consequences, even though they brought Culber back to life, this is what they meant. This is really what they meant. Hodor, Burnham, the Burnham. Ah.
And the other thing in the trailer is this trailer has exactly the same energy as the season 2 trailer, where it's got this really awkward attempts at humour that feel really out of place. They've got that scene where
we're like a dysfunctional family.
We've accepted it, no we haven't, and it's just, people love that line, they think it's really funny, and I don't get it.
Like,
I don't understand.
You haven't known each other that long. You aren't a family yet. Michael Burnham only came aboard the ship like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, this is the Discovery thing where it's just relationships, they just happen.
The fact that each season kind of starts from where the last season ended, but the writing acts like there was a big gap, but the literal plot is showing that it was minutes later.
You know, like season 1 of TNG, the characters all meet in the first episode. And really, for the first whole season, they don't really know each other, but by season 2, they're all kind of friends and they start having card games and all this.
Yeah,
Discovery
just... I always found TNG's first episode, its last episode, they were all very much work colleagues.
Right. Discovery, I always go to the scene of Michael Burnham when Saru thinks he's going to die. And they have this huge, big emotional scene, and it's not earned in any way.
I would say with her, they served on the Shenzhou for like 7 years before they both ended up on Discovery.
Sure, but that relationship that they consider each other like brother and sister, that wasn't established until this episode. And
and I mean, they did kind of become friendly over the course of the first season, and then a little bit earlier in season 2, But again, it's not like months pass. I wish they would do time breaks between seasons where like months have passed or years passed or something, because it is mental that the show literally picks up moments later, but the writing, because the actual writers, they've got a year to plan stuff out. They're like, oh, they know each other really well because a year of our real time has passed. But in the show's time, mere minutes have passed, days. Burnham has only been on Discovery for maybe a year at this point.
The perfect example is the Klingons in season 2, where they all have like foot-long hair. And this is supposed to be 2 days later.
The argument I've heard people make is, at the end of season 1, you know, there's that medal ceremony?
Mm-hmm.
That medal ceremony took place like a year after the scene before that.
Okay.
I don't believe it. I don't believe it.
It's nonsense.
It's nonsense.
And this is why, another reason why I don't like Star Trek fans is people, because there is an argument for Discovery of, there's some people, and I'm not going to discount this, but I don't think it's as valid of, it doesn't match up with the timeline and the uniforms are all different and the technology's all different, right? I don't think that's super important, but there's people who do, and then people who defend the show, they always hit in on that argument and they say people are silly and people who don't like the show, that's the reason why. And that's not the reason why. The show has much bigger problems and it doesn't match up with the timeline.
The shows visually look, I know there's no such thing as objectivity, blah, blah. The shows look pretty much brilliant. The visual effects are through the roof. The costume designs are amazing across
every
all
episode looks like a
Star
movie.
Trek.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's brilliant. To watch it as a feast on the eyes. Every single award they ever get nominated for, usually to do with makeup effects and like visual effects.
Visual effects, yeah.
And they're all completely warranted. Suicide Squad's a train wreck of a movie. It still won an Oscar for makeup, rightfully so. Not every single award anything gets nominated for has anything to do with the plot quality. You'll notice it never gets voted for a plot quality award because it's not warranting one. If you're watching the show because it looks pretty, fair enough. Complete credit to you. That's kind of why I still watch it. Never for the story, because the story is just laughable. And I know we joke and jest about Michael Burnham being responsible for the burn, and I hope you are, Kel. At least I'm not taking. I don't think they're that dumb. But see if it got to the part of season 3 where you find out that's true. My God, I would. Oh, my heart would sink because I have higher hopes than that. I just take it as a meme. But if they'd done it, if they were really that dim-witted, you know.
I'm not taking it as a joke. I got to confess to you, I think there's a distinct possibility.
Oh. I tell you what, Kel, I won't even argue with you because me and you are very much closer to the same side of this.
I expressed this before. Like, obviously we're shitting on Discovery quite a lot right now.
I don't like Discovery more than Picard.
Yes, I don't hate Discovery. I don't want to make it sound like that. I think it's a beautiful mess. Beautiful.
Like Suicide Squad.
Yes, literally and metaphorically. Like, it's beautiful to look at, but also it's so ridiculous that it's fun.
See the
it's
End
fun
Space
to
Battle
talk
season
about.
2 for more.
Yes, it's like you watch that stuff and you just laugh because it's ridiculous. Or just scenes like
whereas Picard, it's bringing back old actors to do the same thing that they used to do, but they're not doing it at all, and that is directly shitting on what came before.
Not even to do with the actors coming back. It's just the tone of that show is so pessimistic about the future and about people and stuff like this, and it's depressing to watch.
As a factor of time, I very much have shifted to viewing Discovery as its own pocket universe. I know they always said it was Prime, and then other people would just say, just pretend it's not, and I never could. But I think I've finally bent the knee and I'm just seeing it as its own thing. I kind of line up with you, where Discovery is a beautiful mess just to behold, and we'll see where everything else goes.
Is there anyone who even matters besides Burnham? It's the same thing, where they keep trying to make this show not about Michael Burnham, while at the same time it's always about Michael Burnham. And that's, if you want to have a show with a main character, you can do that. That's fine. But they spend a lot of time in this trailer trying to make it look like that's not what it is.
It's an ensemble.
Mm-hmm. And I just don't believe them. Because Michael Burnham, she's going off on her whole solo adventure, it looks like, and she meets a new love interest who
apparently she meets him, by the way, in like the first episode, the first like 5 minutes.
I wouldn't be surprised. And he racially matches now to make people more happy. Just gonna throw in my little SGW comment there.
What? I don't get it.
He's black and she's black, which is people are more socially accepting of racially matching relationships.
Was that ever a problem?
Well, Discovery season 1 and 2, she's with Ash Tyler.
So
that's not a racially matching, so it's a bit more progressive, right? But now they're making a back turn. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
Ridiculous. Empress Giorgio is still in the show, Kyle. She was in the trailer. Oh my god.
AI sausage, remember that?
AI sausage.
Ew. Or no, sorry, yum yum. Those were different scenes. Is she still on the show, that lady with the mouth breather things? I don't remember seeing her in the trailer.
I think she went back on the Enterprise.
No, she decided to come along, remember?
Oh, she's now just a background actor.
Yeah. Like all those other people on the bridge who people pretend are their favourite characters, like the
helm lady with the eyepiece.
Lieutenant Owokisho. I remember her because she has a fun name.
Yeah. And there's the Asian tactical officer and the black comms officer.
Yep. Just there's these people. The guy who says the blade mines. They'll cut the whole like cheese. That guy, you know.
Yeah. It's stunning how much they've spread out the cast. We now have a chief scientist, Stamets, who was also kind of the chief engineer for a while, but now Jet Reno's seeming to be staying on the show, and I think she's now going to be the chief engineer. Maybe they'll both be the exact same plot position.
There was Culber as the Doctor, but also there was that other lady who became the Doctor when Culber was dead, and she's still there.
I personally do not mind there being a couple of Doctors.
But the problem is, all of these characters are completely irrelevant. You don't need them. Season 1 understood this, and that's why Season 1 is slightly better. None of these characters matter. They're just bridge officers. You know, Star Trek TNG has plenty of nameless bridge officers.
You never knew the helmsman unless Wesley was around.
Yeah, there was like 6 different people who manned the helm at different points, you know?
Yeah.
There's a different helmsman for each hour of the day, basically. There's a roster.
Yeah, you'd shift rotations and stuff.
Yeah. And in Discovery Season 2, Pike comes in and he wants to know the bridge officers' names, and then they try and pretend that the bridge officers all have these important friendships with Tilly and Michael Burnham, and it's just nonsense. It's all just irrelevant.
If you're going to do it, though, you can do it. Like, DS9, especially Voyager, the entire crew is basically a family. Tom Paris, helmsman, William, head of operations, Ensign Harry Kim, Tuvok, tactical. That was like the show that had a proper fleshed out bridge crew.
Right, but Discovery doesn't do that, though.
I know, it pretends that it does.
Discovery has its core casts, Michael Burnham, and then like that, she's tier 1, and then tier 2 is like Saru, Tilly, Stamets, and then tier 3 is like Culber.
Yeah, it always fluctuates though with the Emperor. How important is Ash Tyler ever coming back? That Section 31 show's still supposed to be happening, so she's got to go back to the 23rd century.
Watch my video on Section 31 to learn more.
I have a side thing here, right? Remember the episode where Kelsey Grammer comes into the 24th century in TNG?
I do. It's a good episode where the ship keeps crashing and blowing up. And
great episode, right? Now, when they sort that time loop out, and Kelsey Grammer and his crew are now trapped in the 24th century, I assume, unless they've done some great episode where they went back in time and they never made it. He is going to... I'm assuming that ship's going to get decommissioned and he's getting a new commander. Maybe they just all leave Starfleet because they're 100 years out of date.
I think there's a comic book or something where Kelsey Grammer is in like the grey DS9 uniform and stuff like that. So
that'd be fun. I've never seen that. That'd be fun though. But like that ship is now out of date. Discovery is now one of the most ancient spacefaring vessels out there. It's in league with the Bajoring sailor vessel from that DS9 episode. And I get it. Starfleet basically doesn't exist anymore. The Federation probably, or it does exist. We know the Federation exists, but I don't know if Starfleet does. I think they've implied it doesn't. But technology would have advanced. Like, remember the episode E Squared in Enterprise, where there's two Enterprises and one's crewed with the descendants of the original crew?
Yeah.
That Enterprise, when it was in the Expanse for 120 years, upgraded itself and made itself better over time and had a bigger crew and stuff. Got a shield generator, I believe. But will this show do anything to the Discovery to make it be able to contend in the 31st century, or is it just going to accept that it's got 23rd century technology, but it doesn't matter, it can equally contend with everything 1,000 years ahead of it?
They'll have some throwaway line, I'm sure.
I need to know how this ship will survive.
Well, they see it, and it's a big dramatic shot in the trailer. It's crashed. Oh no.
Remember when Voyager crashed on an ice planet and killed everyone?
Yeah.
I guess they'll say, remember when the saucer section of the D crashed? It did, but it was more like a gentle decline and then a glide. And this looks like it just...
It's the same as Picard. Remember when they crashed Rios' little ship? And it's fine. They can just take off again.
It's ridiculous.
You remember when I don't like any of the TNG movies particularly, but at least when the Enterprise crashed, it was dead. It was dead and gone. It was... Like, the people survived, but there was no coming back from it.
Yeah.
And
this ship will lift off again.
It looks perfectly intact. There's not even, like, sparks or pieces missing from it. It's like you dropped a toy.
Yeah. There's, like, a big mud scoop around it to imply that it's crashed.
It came in hot.
Yeah, it came in hot. You know, it didn't just stop. It went for a while skidding along the ground. But it'll be fine.
It's gonna have mud stuck in the pointless spinny bit.
It's gonna have landing gears so that it can go to blue alert, Kyle. Even though Voyager was supposed to be the first ship, I think they could do that.
Are we done?
I love Star Trek. It just doesn't love me.